Okay, welcome to QuickPass, everybody. This is the third QuickPass session. I'm sorry, I have a really bad echo. If you can please mute your mics. Okay. Yeah, welcome to QuickPass, everybody. We still have some folks filtering in, but we want to go ahead and get started now so we can get through some introductions and also introduce you to the some of the Code Platoon team we have on and share some information there. And then we will get started with the lesson. And so I will start out with myself.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Can everybody else hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I hear you good.
Okay. So I'm Aaron Wood. I served 21 years in the Air Force as a weather forecaster. I retired back in 2020, right in the thick of COVID, and decided to change my path and move from weather into software engineering. And I utilized the Skill Bridge program, which I'm sure some of you may be using. And I went to Code Platoon with it. So I'm a graduate of Lima Platoon. I graduated back in August of 2020. And yeah, and then ever since I've been a software engineer working for several different defense contractors. And I'm actually doing work now with a company that deals a lot with Air Force weather. So I'm kind of meshed both of my worlds together into one. It's actually almost like a dream job to me. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I actually taught while I was at one of my previous companies. I taught Python, and when they set up this QuickPass program, they asked who wanted to teach it, and I jumped at the opportunity because I do love teaching. I taught when I was in the service for 4 years. I taught weather, and teaching code is also one of my passions. I love it. That's me. You'll learn more about my history, where I've been, I'm sure, in class. With me today, also, I have Tish Johnson, who is really going to deal with a lot of the VA stuff for folks. And we also have Gregory Drobny, who I'm sure everyone has talked to at least once when dealing with the mission. So yeah, so I guess I'll pass it off. You want to go first, Greg, and give your intro and information?
Absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it. And like Aaron said, I know that I've spoken with a lot of you already. If you haven't spoken with me, I am the recruitment outreach manager. I usually speak to people first, just to kind of let them know about the program, what to expect, different questions about funding. I'm not an expert in anything we do at Code Platoon. I just know a little bit to make me dangerous about every department. So when it starts getting into the weeds, I just point to Tish or Aaron, people that actually know what they're talking about. And that way that I don't get them in too much trouble. But I am here, in all seriousness, I'm here as kind of a facilitator of communication. So if you have questions about general things about Code Platoon, I am happy to answer them. At this point, where you are now, you're probably best served by asking technical questions to Aaron or funding questions to Tish. But again, I can help in any way possible. Oh, and I'm an Army vet, infantry, so that's why I'm a recruiter and I don't do technical stuff because, you know, got to carry the heavy weight long distance. That's why I'm broken. But at any rate, Tish, over to you.
Thanks, Greg and Aaron. Hello, everyone. My name is Tish Johnson. I'm the Student Support and Compliance Manager here with Code Platoon. I reside in the Philadelphia area, and I've been with Code Platoon a little over 2 years. So I handle all things related to funding, how you're going to pay for school, as well as helping you process and navigate the VA process, benefits. So as many of you may have been familiar, I wanted to talk a little bit about the expiration of the Vet Tech program. It was a program that many students used in the past to help them not only fund school, but also receive a housing allowance. It was a great program, but unfortunately, it was a pilot program. It has recently ended. So nevertheless, we still have a lot of funding options available in terms of scholarships that we offer, as well as students who come in person can utilize their VA benefits, their GI Bill, and then VRNE is also an option for both in person and remote. So if you are interested in utilizing VA benefits, I suggest you reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat. Also, I'm going to send everyone more information regarding scholarships, what they look like, both full and partial, so you can start to think about which one you might be eligible for. And while you're going through the QuickPass program, feel free to ask me any specific questions about scholarships and how they work as well. I will also answer any questions here if anyone has anything specific they want to ask about funding VA programs or GI Bill or also scholarships. Does anybody have any questions now? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, usually we have at least 1 or 2 questions for Greg or Tish. So right now is a really good time to ask them any questions that you may have for the admissions process, especially with dealing with the VA. But you can also ask questions in the chat. They'll be in the chat channel as well on Slack, so you can ask questions there as well.
I got one. I couldn't unmute. Margarito Bruno.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. So with like I got the post 9/11 GI Bill. I mean, is that supposed to be used by a certain time? Like I used some of it back in 2004, I think it was, or 2005. I mean, does that expire, or does that, or the time frame to use the post 9/11?
There is a time frame, and each person's is individual. Do you have a statement of benefits or something like a letter from the VA? Because usually it has a date that they need to be a delimiting date.
Yeah, I think I got one back then. I mean, I could reach out and try to get another one. Yeah.
Okay, well, email me and I'll help you request it, and then we can look at your case individually and figure out if you're able to use or not.
Now, if that is expired, what happens next? Or is
Well,
it like,
well, you can also apply for a scholarship through us. And then once you apply for a scholarship, we'll be able to tell you. I'll let you guys know for scholarships, especially right now with the limited option for VA funding, we have most students either come in with a full or a partial scholarship. Now, we do have, like I said, a few VRNE students who utilize that benefit, or if someone has, their full GI Bill benefits and they want to use that. But for the most part, as of right now, most of our students are on either a full or a partial scholarship. So you don't have to worry about, are you going to be eligible if there's some stringent requirement. It's just a matter of which one and how much you'll be eligible for. So I hope that helps. But you would be eligible for a scholarship.
okay. Thank you.
I actually have a question there, Tish. Is Miguel Acevedo here.
Hi.
I was wondering about for the scholarship. How do you know how much of the scholarship will be, or how much of the tuition will be?
Well, tuition as of October 1st is $20,000 for everyone. So we offer full and partial scholarships. There are different groups, different categories that we use. It's not financial based. It's a simple Google form to complete, and based on what information you give us, we determine which one you will be eligible for. So currently our full scholarships are $20,000, which will cover the cost of the tuition. Partial scholarships are $17,000. So if you receive a partial scholarship, there will be a remaining balance, but we will work with you on a payment plan. And that balance will not be due until after you graduate. So either way, no student comes to our program paying more than $3,000.
All right, thank you.
So for applying for full scholarships, it's just basically with the reporting data. So we have different ones. I'm going to send you all, they're on our website as well. But so for example, we have an active duty full scholarship. We have women in technology, Black and Hispanic. We have a transgender scholarship. We have a veteran scholarship, and we also have a military spouse scholarship. But those categories, like I said, depends on whether you get a full or a partial. So it's important when you fill out your data to any group that you may belong to, please make sure you note that, and it helps us determine which scholarship you will be eligible for.
And we can apply for the scholarship before getting accepted, or we have to wait until we're accepted to apply for it?
We have a scholarship eligibility form on our website, which you can apply for now. Once you get accepted, I'll send you the official application. But the eligibility form gives you an idea of which one you should look to receive once you become accepted to the program.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. With some questions in the chat.
Yeah, we've
I
quite a
have a
few
question.
actually.
Okay.
Hello, my name is James.
Hi, James.
My question is in regards to the post 9/11. If we still have months available to use for post 9/11,
Mhm.
would we have to use that in conjunction with a scholarship?
You don't have to use it. It's totally up to you. Some students prefer to use their GI Bill benefits so that they can receive the housing stipend from the VA. If you opt out of that, certainly you would still be eligible for a scholarship. Now, some students have, for example, our program uses about 9.5 months of GI Bill benefits, and they may have 5 left. They can still use their GI Bill benefits, but also will be eligible for a scholarship. So it just depends on your case, what you have left, if you're willing to use it, but it's always optional.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So a question, if you fall under more than one category, how do we apply? Yeah, just fill out the Google and yeah, that's right. And select everything that applies to you. And then I will review it. And then once we decide which one you'll be eligible for, we will send you an email confirmation of which one you receive.
Hey, Tish, there was a question in the chat that I think it might, like a lot of people are probably hearing about this. So someone asked about the new rules about SkillBridge, whether or not these new rules would eliminate us from SkillBridge. To start out with, there's been a lot of misinformation put out. There's nothing officially changed about SkillBridge yet. There are changes coming. There was a document that was released by DoD. DoD then rescinded that document, pulled it back, and is reviewing it under its legal department, and it's actually going through some reviews. Nothing has been officially changed. Now, it's not going to, everything I've heard, and this is something I've been digging into the last few days, nothing's going to impact the upcoming cohort. So if you're coming to Yankee Platoon, we're still in good standing with SkillBridge. I've heard back from the SkillBridge people as recently as last month. Code Platoon is still an authorized SkillBridge provider. Now, moving forward into 2025, does that mean that there might be changes? Very possibly. We don't know yet. I'm going to be tracking this. Nobody really knows more than what I've just told you, but as of right now, we're still solid. We're still on solid ground. So don't worry. If your command, and this is the big thing for SkillBridge anyway, and it always has been, if your chain of command has approved you to attend, it really doesn't matter what DoD says. Because by the time your chain of command figures out what DoD is saying, you're going to be through this program and out into the world. I promise you it's not going to matter. So really what ultimately matters most, if you are a SkillBridge student or a SkillBridge hopeful right now, what matters absolutely more than anything is whether or not your chain of command is currently on board. As long as they're on board, as long as they sign something saying, yes, you can attend Code Platoon, the big thumbs up. We're in a good position. So at any rate, there's a lot of stuff floating around about SkillBridge changes. We don't know anything more officially than that. But right now we're solid.
Okay, any other questions?
There was a question too about vet tech coming back. I don't know, Tish, do you want to touch on that one?
Well, I was going to say, Greg, we have the same information. We hope so. There's some talk about there's some talk about a potential forever vet tech, but it's still being held up right now, I think, while they work out all the details. But we have no idea about the timeline of when that program would be offered and what it will look like. So it's still kind of like floating around out there.
The short version of the vet tech bill is that everybody in Congress is in favor of a forever vet tech bill. This is not a partisan issue. However, it got attached to a veterans healthcare reform bill. And there's all these little factors that go into healthcare reform that a lot of people don't like and a lot of people do. So it's sitting there. It may not go anywhere until after the elections at this point.
It looks like we have more question about funding needing to be finalized for VR&E.
Let's see. At what point does funding need to be finalized? Okay, so with VRNE, as long as you have been assigned a counselor and approved for the benefit, we will work with you because we are able to process VRNE benefits even post program. So as long as you have proof that you were accepted to VRNE and you have been assigned a counselor, we can work with you even throughout the program.
We like VRNE.
Yes.
And we want more VRNE students. So tell your counselors this place is amazing and they want more. Send them our way, please.
And please try, even if you're not sure if you're eligible, try and see what happens. Well, you can apply on the VA website and just see.
Okay, any other questions concerning VA and admissions? If not,
I'm sorry, Greg, Juan had a question. If we are not able to pass the one-on-one coding challenge, will we be able to join the next cohort? Greg, you want to take that one or redo? Do they have to redo the whole process again?
So say that I was sending an invite to someone in the chat saying they didn't get they were on the channel, Slack channel.
He said we're not able to pass the coding challenge. Will we be able to join the next cohort or do we need to redo the whole process again?
That is ultimately up to Guillermo. He's kind of the gatekeeper. Aaron, is he going to be joining you at any point in this process? My guess is that yes, he is, right?
he will. So I have a date set up. My DMs with him fell off my preview screen right now. So I have a lot of students DMing me. So I can't say that now, but it's either day 2 or day 3. He'll be joining and he'll give all the information about the application and the part 2 and the coding challenges and all that. Stand by for that. And I can also get some information for you as well. This other question from Megan, is it live technical in Python like QuickPass or JavaScript? That is your choice. QuickPass is only Python. So if you get more comfortable with Python after this course, which I hope you will be, then you can do it in Python. Python is a bit easier with syntax, so it's a good language to learn with. Okay. I think that's all the questions in the chat. Any other questions for Greg or Tish?
And feel free to email me if you have questions, greg@codeplatoon.org.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
Appreciate
Have a good
it.
evening.
Y'all have a great one.
Yes,
Talk
thank
soon.
you. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. I also want to introduce, I have a TA for this course as well. And I don't know how to say it. Is it Kevon? So Rich Kevon?
Yeah, it's Kevin, just like the first name.
Oh, okay. So Rich Kevin is joining us. He's going to be the TA for the course. So he'll be doing a lot of answering the questions in the chat. And then he'll be around to answer questions in Slack whenever y'all have questions. I'll be around too. If y'all doing some lesson stuff, in off hours, while I'm working, I still check Slack every now and then, and I'll answer a question or two. So don't be afraid. Just throw questions out in the Slack channel. But yeah, Rich, do you want to give a bit of an intro for yourself?
Yeah, so I started software engineering, went through a boot camp back in 2020. I was doing a little bit of front-end dev before that. Been doing it professionally, primarily in the JavaScript world, but I also do a little bit of Python, Django. Currently working my way through some other certs, just to kind of expand, and doing TA for this and also for the X-ray cohort.
And so that one's graduating soon, isn't it?
Yeah, so they'll graduate middle of September, I think.
Yeah.
Ish.
That's so cool. It's cool to watch folks come from QuickPass and then go through and, with whiskey, we had, they went through my class, and then, one of the only internships they offered from one of the partner companies, Platoon, the QuickPass student got that internship to work for DRW, which was super exciting. I was super happy. Cool. Well, yeah. So that is the intros. But welcome everybody. If you haven't clicked the attendance link, I know Rich has shared it. I shared it at the beginning. Please visit that link so we can record attendance, just so we know who's been here. It is not mandatory to attend. So it is not mandatory to attend these sessions, but I welcome everybody to do so, because you get an instructor with a TA and other folks who are knowledgeable about coding, and you can ask the questions that you need. The format of the class, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Has everybody looked at least looked at the pre-course information? Let me see here. Yeah, I'm getting some thumbs up here. Let me share my screen. This. Okay. I don't know. Can y'all see a Visual Studio Code window or something else?
It looks like we've got your other window. We've got
Yeah.
your manage
Okay.
members
Black.
window or something.
Okay, let me try that again. I think I need to move the entire window before I share the screen. Yeah, Zoom was updated, and there's some weird behaviors I have to get used to. I only do this class once every few months, so it's there's been quite a few updates. All right, how about now?
Yeah,
We're good. Yep.
Sweet, awesome,
Yes.
great. Okay, so the format of QuickPass. This course is intended to build up your skills enough to where you can pass the application. That's really the intent of QuickPass. It will get you enough to where then you can go through and get some pre-work done, get admitted to Platoon, go through the pre-work, and then be able to join the next cohort quickly. Of course, this one is mainly for Yankee platoon, but once you pass QuickPass, you are also able to join any later platoon. You don't have to go through the application process again. So this is a really nice program. Gotten some pretty good reviews from folks who have gone through, and I hope that this is useful to you. And even if you decide not to join the next cohort, maybe later decide, or just use this information to further your coding journey. So it's really up to you. But we, of course, want as many folks as we can to get admitted into cohorts because it's a great program. Being a graduate myself, this was one of the best decisions I've made in my professional career. The tech world, can be volatile, but as far as employment prospects, I know some veterans have hard times finding employment. Knowing the skill set, understanding how code works will benefit you in any job. And it's not just becoming a developer. You can use it for other jobs like project management. So so I'm excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for the course. Again, attendance is not mandatory, but you can always look at our YouTube videos. I'll post them every night or the next morning, depending on if I'm too tired or it takes too long to process my computer. It takes about 45 minutes of video, which ends up being like a 3-hour video to process. So there's a bit of a delay for me to get it finally uploaded to the YouTube channel. The lesson for this cohort is slightly different than the past one. So if you want to look at previous QuickPass sessions, they're on the Code Platoon channel as well. I did make a slight change to the course, and I moved lesson 1 from last time into the pre-course. So if you've taken a look at the pre-course, I tried to make it to where it gives you a lot of background information on Python, on programming in general, gives you some programming concepts, and then some basics about Python like syntax and some other just quick overview things on Python. You can always refer back to this while I'm teaching, and it's going to be a great resource for you. There's also some links at the bottom to help you, doing some setup on your computer. Another thing about Platoon is, or not Platoon, QuickPass, is that there's no requirements at all for you to be doing anything on your computer. There's no requirement to install anything. You can do all the work in an online REPL. You can use, GitHub code spaces, which are containers that are, generated, and you can do everything through your browser. So if you have an iPad, that's all you have. You can code with an iPad if you want to. You can code with a phone if you want to. It'd be kind of hard, but you could do it. So I do have some introductions on some folks. Of course, you met Greg and Tish. And then, of course, Guillermo Aguilar is going to be the admissions. He's a pre-work coordinator, and he will be going over the assessment, the part 2 assessment, and then also he does the one-on-one technical assessment. And he will be joining us in a future class to kind of go over the particulars on that process. Most of you have joined Slack. I think I saw some stragglers being added a little bit, but that is our primary means of communication. And I urge everybody to ask questions in that main channel. The reason being is you're going to have a question and someone else is going to have the same question. And we could be in lesson 7 or 8 or in our final exercises where we're just kind of doing project and just coding together. You may have a question on something that was introduced in lesson 2. And I want you to ask it because most likely someone else has the same question as well. This is a foundational course, and you are going to, you're going to have to think about these foundational concepts, and you'll have to just know them. So you're gonna have to, it's almost memorization on some of these things like these data types, and they'll become, just like Python is a coding language, it is another language. And it's something you have to get familiar with. Like the things we'll be learning in this class are just like for English, the nouns, the verbs, the adjectives, those things you just have to know. And so asking questions, there's no shame in asking a question that we learned in lesson 1. Just ask it because someone else may be just as confused. You'll see me using Visual Studio Code, and of course the lesson are in Jupyter Notebooks. If you have any questions on these resources, I'll be happy to answer those in Slack. And also we're in downtime, like during breaks, I typically don't take many breaks while I'm teaching. I may take a quick one, but I'll be back in a few minutes and we could talk about some of these tools as well. If you have any questions on actually installing some things in your computer. But I primarily use Visual Studio Code on the job. I briefly used PyCharm at my first job, but Visual Studio Code has been my go-to IDE since I learned how to code. Jupyter Notebooks I started using at my last employment, and I taught with them, and I thought it was a great format to teach QuickPass with. So I went ahead and wrote the course in Jupyter Notebooks. And I recommend using this for learning because the way it breaks code down. If you look here, I can actually put a code cell in here and actually run it. It's really nice because it gives you some text and then a code cell, and then you can go on with more text. I mentioned the GitHub code spaces. Take a look at it. It's actually pretty awesome. You get there's like a free tier where you can use up to 60 hours of compute, and that's enough for this course. You can just copy files from here. Once you save the files, you can save the files from GitHub, and then you can paste them into that code spaces and run it. So you can use it that way too, right in your browser. You don't have to do anything else. And then a lot of you are familiar with REPL, REPL.it. That is an online REPL to read, evaluate, print, loop Python code or any other language as well. You can use that. I also have a link to Python Tutor. I'll be referencing this in class every now and then. to kind of show how code is running, because it breaks down step by step what's happening. And so there's some other information about scripts and how computers work, and then of course the Python stuff. So feel free to take a look at this pre-course. Refer back to it to kind of do a memory jogger. Play with the Jupyter notebook. Try and run it. And we will go over a lot of this stuff in more detail in the upcoming lessons, starting with the first one. So with Python native data types and methods, we're going to actually go into all the very basic pieces of Python, the actual native data types that you'd be working with. And so that's what we're going to go into. Let's see here. Does anybody have any questions on the pre-course? I can quickly answer some of those, because actually the session with Craig and Tish was a little shorter than the past couple of QuickPass sessions. So I do have a little bit of time. Do you have any questions on the pre-course information that I can answer now?
What browser is best to use with these Jupyter notebooks? I tried looking at it earlier today on Microsoft Edge when I was at work. We can only use Edge, and it didn't seem to work very well. What browser are you using here?
So this is actually Visual Studio Code.
Okay.
And you can download, it's free from Microsoft, and you can download that, and then there's extensions that you can add. And I think I only have just a couple. Where's my Jupyter notebook right here. So it's like Jupyter. You install this extension, and it allows you to run Jupyter notebooks inside of VS Code. But I can run Jupyter notebooks in a browser as well. And on break or at other times, I can show you how to do that. It's a pretty easy process, but you have to install Jupyter to your computer natively. And so if you're not comfortable doing that, we can explore other options as well.
I had the same experience with Chrome. Tried to look at the Jupyter notebooks and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
So what I found, if you are on like a Nipper machine where you don't have a Python interpreter available, then you can use like Google Colab, where basically it'll give you like a cloud-based Python interpreter.
Yep. And, there's a lot of sources, and if anybody has any sources to share with the class as well, just throw them into the QuickPass Summer 2024 Slack channel. That's a great place to put resources. If you found something that works for you, it may work for somebody else. Feel free to share it. I do encourage lots of discussion in this room. You learn more, you learn better, especially coding. You learn more when you're collaborating. And when you're coding together, which we will do, if you look at lessons 7, 8, 9, there is no new material I'm introducing. That's a full week, well, three days, and there can be 3 days in a row because that's the holiday weekend. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to just be coding mini projects together. And I find that doing the code together, I'll ask questions and try and see what you guys would recommend when we're trying to structure a project and we're trying to do things. That I feel like I learn better that way, and I've gotten good reviews on other folks learning and their learning progress with QuickPass. So that's what I also did. I changed. I only had 2 days in my previous session. I decided to make a third one because I found that a lot of folks learn better that way. And it also takes some pressure off of you, because there are some like exercises. Again, there's nothing due as well. I'm not gonna check any work in this class. All the stuff I have in here is for you to use on your own, but there are some exercises at the end of the lessons where I'm introducing new material. Because we want you to start focusing, even now, once you get used to some of this stuff, and once you go back and try the application, try and get those coding challenges done, because you'll find it gets easier and easier as you learn more material. But there's not much time once QuickPass ends to get that part 2 in and get your one-on-one schedule with Guillermo. So even while you're learning, I want folks to be going into the part 2 and trying to finish the challenges there. So
How long is the one-on-one session with Guillermo?
it is as long. I don't know the time limit. I think it's an hour or 45 minutes. I'm not sure. Again, he'll give that detail. But it's as long as it takes you to basically finish the challenges. He's gonna watch you code and see what you come up with. And if he's good with what you've done, he'll just stop it. He's like, yeah, this is great. And then he'll let you know whether you're admitted or not at that point.
And another question, it's more for confirmation. I went through the first 6 modules of the pre-course work. I started on the challenges. Now, granted, I haven't done anything with programming languages in 15, 20 years. So I got to the challenges and instantly was like, this is Greek. And then I started realizing that there was things in the challenges or code it was asking for that I hadn't, or at least I don't feel like I learned in the first 6 modules. And I took notes, screen snippets, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't look familiar to me. Can you speak to that at all? Was it just kind of a...
Are you talking about the modules that I have here? You already went through them?
No, the pre-course work.
Oh, okay. I really can't speak to that. Now I know, again, you're going to get, with this, you're going to get all the puzzle pieces, right? And then, we'll teach you how to kind of put pieces together. But we want you to explore. We want you to try and use the different methods that we have here. All these different data types you're going to learn this lesson here are going to be, you can do all sorts of stuff. Like, you may be able to solve things with a loop, or you may be able to solve things with, set methods. You may be able to solve different problems using any other method that we have for data types. But it's really up to you to explore. We're going to give you the main, basically there's like 3 things you'll need to know to code really anything. And I think there's a 4th one too, but I mean, Guillermo will go over this, but like assigning variables, that's one thing that we're going to have. You just have to know how to assign variables and reassign them, because you do that all the time with coding. Functions. So we're going to go over functions. I think in lesson 2, let me expand my window here. Yeah, lesson 2, we're going to learn about functions and how they work. You already introduced some functions in the pre-course, at least how they're laid out. Manipulating data types. So understanding, the unordered data types and the ordered data types like lists. Those things you're going to learn about. And then how to move data from one data type to another. That's another key piece. Once you do all those things, you can basically code anything. It just may be super inefficient without understanding the more advanced methods, but you can still get it done. Now I can tell you with the challenges, they introduce a lot of things where you do one thing and you realize you have another problem when you like start down a road. You have to kind of handle that problem. Those are called edge cases, and you may have to solve all of them, or you may not have to. Depends on what you have in your test cases. And I'll teach you a little bit about handling those, because we'll run into those with our mini projects. So when we do our mini projects, you'll see how we'll run into issues with, using a certain methodology and what would be the best approach to tackling something. And we'll go with the non-optimal approach. We may finish a script with a non-optimal approach, and that's okay. Because really, I just want, the whole point of this is to get you to see how the code is working and how to build something small like this, which will match a lot of what your challenges are. So, and I know some of y'all have already finished some of the challenges, and I hope you've gotten, you enjoyed them, and you felt, a big sense of accomplishment in finishing those, especially when you see all the green tests passing. That's always awesome. So I just, urge you to stick with me. When we get through this, I feel like you're going to be ready to go through that application process. So, and just keep opening up those challenges and going through them, and it'll get easier, I promise. And without further ado, I guess we can go ahead and start. It is 6:41, so we'll do about 20 minutes of lesson, and then we'll take a break. So we're going to start off with the, this is just learning about the nouns and the verbs of Python, right? We're going to go over the native data types. Some of this can be kind of boring, but it's still interesting. I threw some stuff in here to help make it interesting. You'll notice here in the lessons that we have like links. I'll have links to different resources. Please visit those. A lot of them are going to be to like the python.org site. Will give you some information about data types. And if you open it, it does, it's not the most, amazing site. You can always Google them too and find other sites as well. The beauty about software engineering is that you're going to have plenty of resources by Googling. If you Google anything, you're going to get, especially when it comes to software engineering, you're going to find, what you're looking for the most part, unless the problem you have is very specific. But for data types, we're really going to go over, 5 of them. That's really the 5 main ones we have. And that's Booleans, whole numbers, which are integers, decimal numbers. So any number that has a decimal point will be a float, sequences of characters, which will be a string. You'll work with these a lot. Strings will be worked with a lot in your coding journey. And then you have the none type. The reason we have these different data types is because they're handled by computer memory differently. And they allow us to, approximate real world problems with these 5 basic data types. There are more data types available, but these are you're really going to use mostly these for the most part. These in conjunction with the data structures, which we'll learn about in lesson 3 and 4. But knowing how to work with these, knowing what type you are working with is important. So I have this here, this type with these parentheses here. This is actually a built-in method that will show you the type of data you're working with. So you can just wrap your whatever variable you have with that, and it will tell you what kind it is. But these different data objects, and this is where, computers don't behave like humans, right? So when we have a string, which is, you can see a string is kind of surrounded by quotes, and then you have an integer, which is a number. In a normal interpreter, without any kind of enhancements, like this is a IDE, Visual Studio Code with Jupyter Notebook, these highlight different colors. But if you're looking at this in like a text file, you wouldn't see that. But the quotes would give it away that this is a string, and then this is a number. When you try and run these together, let me select my interpreter, you get an error because the computer, while you can see that you're looking for 1 plus 3, the computer doesn't see that because the memory location in the computer, they do not see those types of data as being compatible. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I got someone asking me if I could zoom in. Let me see here. Is that good? Great. All right, so I'll keep it this big. It's always a challenge trying to find the right size. So we'll use this. But yeah, so this here, it says unsupported operand type for integer and string, which is saying, hey, I don't know I can't put these 2 together because I don't know how to. And that's basically what it's saying. You can get around that by casting. So in our example here, we have our string 3 and our number 1. We can cast it with this built-in method that will turn that 3 into a number. So if I ran this, then it comes back with 4. So that would be the exact same thing as doing 1 plus 3. Let me go ahead and start that there too. There we go. So this is a casting operation when we're trying to change data types. Okay, and here, just like you saw in the pre-course, if you looked at it, you have a variable assignment. If you notice, a single equal sign is a variable assignment. So it doesn't check for equality. You're actually assigning something to memory. So in memory, my variable ends up being this float of 34.45. And I know it's a float because I can see there's a decimal point, but I do have the type method here. I'm wrapping my variable in. And if I run that, I get back a float. So I know that's a float because the decimal point, I can read that. But if you had assigned this somewhere else in your code and you just have my variable with no context, you can wrap it in the type method to see what type it is, which will help you then work with the data as you're going, writing your code. And like I said before, we have this as an integer, and now I'm going to use this float method to cast my 3 into a float. And if I run that, I now get a float back as a result because I have a float in my operation. And we'll go over that more when we go through how to add numbers together. You end up with the most restrictive data type if you try and add 2 different together. So here I have an integer, I have a float. I end up with a float. Now, what do y'all think is going to happen if I run this code here?
Is it just going to combine the 2 strings, the string of 1 and the string of 3, and just kind of mash them together?
Yeah, you should get 13.
Yep. You get a string, and it's just 1, 3, right? So in that case, this addition, which with numbers would add them, it would act just like a calculator, would add everything together. When you're dealing with strings, this becomes a concatenation operation. So a concatenation just mashes everything together. And you'll see me use this when working with strings every now and then. You'll see me using that, especially in print statements. When we're dealing with casting, just keep in mind that you need to make sure that if you're trying to cast something to another data type. In this case, I have a string of 4.56, right? And I'm trying to cast to an integer. Well, what's one of the properties of integers?
It's a whole number.
Yeah. So it's a whole number, right? So if I try to cast it, it's not going to let me. And it gives me this, this weird error. It says, invalid literal for int with base 10, right? What it's saying is, hey, there's a decimal point there, and you can't do this. And so I've actually had that happen in, code I've been working with, and I see that error. I'm like, oh, I have to go find where I'm casting something differently, and I have to, change it. So I have to change it. I typically always just cast things to floats. If I'm looking at casting anything into a number, it's always good to go with more precision if you can. But in this case here, if you really just want a integer, you would have to do something with your input data first. Like you would have to cut off the 0.56 if you needed to. So any questions on that overview? Okay, let's move on to Booleans. Booleans are the most basic data type in Python, and they serve a big role because you'll be using them all the time. They are how computers make decisions. When you write software, you will turn most things, you will break most problems down into Boolean type questions. So, and that's one of the skills when you look at the pre-course and you think about how I'm going to take a problem and I'm going to, break it down. It's a skill. You have to learn how to do it. You have to learn how to break problems down to their most basic parts and say, how am I going to put this together where the computer will do this? And I can give you a real world example. Whenever I was, we have a system that we use that tracks all the students that are wanting to go into Platoon. And as you joined QuickPass and we get enrolled students, we have a system that pulls up your emails and everything else so we can send emails out. And so I was using 2 different reports from each day, so I knew who to send the emails to every day. So I resend it to people who have already gotten it. So I wrote a quick script that will take the emails, extract them, and then basically ask a bunch of questions like, is this email also in this list? Yes or no? And then if it is, then it would not give me that email to send. If it was a no, then it would give me the email. And so oh yeah, so Delvina, so so casting is writing the code. You are writing code when you're casting, but you're actually changing data type. So if you have something and you want to convert it to something else, these casting methods, you'll use those to change the data type. So it is an easy concept to know. Like I want my program to do, to answer these questions, yes or no questions. But it actually takes practice to do that, and really just these challenges you'll be doing will help you kind of figure out how you're going to break problems down to yes or no questions, and then write code that will lead you to those correct results. And so in this example here, I have some code, right? I have, if you look here, the line 1, I have a variable called current temperature, and I'm assigning it to the value of 67. And then I have this bit of code, which we will go over this in the next lesson, but it's okay to introduce this now because this is a pretty easy one to read. The great thing about Python is that it is super easy to read. In this case, we have current temperature, and I'm saying, hey, if current temperature is less than 68, then I want to do something else, or if the opposite is true, then I want to do this other thing, right? In this case, and I kind of put a little preview here, current temperature is, of course, 67. We define that here. If it's less than 68, then I want to make heater on true. Otherwise, make it false. Oop, I went too far. And I can also go down here and just run a quick print statement. And then go ahead and run print heater on. The specifics of the print statement, again, are in the pre-course. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, that's okay. You have time to look at this and look at, take it and, take the lessons it has and apply it to these lessons. You'll have time to look at the pre-course. It is not mandatory to have it, but if you've been looking at it, it gives you a great context on some of the things we're doing in the course. But this print method here will just print stuff to the output. So if I run that, of course, heater on equals true because this evaluated true. Then I defined heater on to be true. If I change my current temperature to 69, run that, ends up being false because it's higher than 68. Yes, so Megan has a good point about JavaScript. This is one of those syntax things, right? So I mentioned syntax in the pre-course. The syntax of Python is the indentations and the colons. So the colon after the statement and the indentation is how you put something into an if-else block. With JavaScript, you have these curly braces. So JavaScript has a lot of curly braces. Python does not. There's advantages to both. Python, again, is readability. Can a human read it? Yeah, with Python, you can read it. It's really easy to read. Your code, when you write it, whether it be in a function or in just a long script that you have, this is what your problem is going to be. This could be a small part of a bigger problem that you have. This is exactly these yes or no questions are how you tell a computer to make decisions. You can have a future script below that say, if the heater is on, do this thing. If the heater is not on, then do that. Like, for example, turning on a humidifier. If the heater's on and the humidity level is at 15%, turn on humidifier. If it is not, If the humidity level is higher than that, if it's 30%, don't turn on the humidifier. You'll add your code together with other future code blocks to have a full running program. Any questions on Booleans? It's a real small portion, but there's a lot to it and a lot of practice with Booleans. Cool. I think we're going to stop here and take a break. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We'll just come back at 7. Let's just come back at 7:06 and we will resume the lesson. Go ahead and pause the recording. That's not how I do it. Here it is. Okay. So welcome back from break. We're going to resume the lesson. We did have a question during the break, though, about just running code, whether using Replit or something else. You don't have to have Jupyter on your computer to run anything. And I did want to do a quick little like explanation of the GitHub. So under lessons is where all the lessons are. And when you go here to the lessons, you have them all right here. You can actually download these to your computer, and then you can copy and paste code. And that's this raw file right here. If you download this, then you can download it straight to your computer, and you can move it to any other resource you want to use it. And my favorite, and I'm going to go back to GitHub here. Let me just go to GitHub code spaces. Let me log in here. Let me see if okay. So I'm already logged in. So here we have our, it says your instant dev environment. This is really nice because this, and the blank one is great. You can also pull up the Jupyter Notebook one, but I would just use the blank one. And so if I click use this template, what this is going to do is going to start. So if y'all heard of the, Amazon Web Services or anything else, the cloud, right? This is actually going to start a cloud environment, a cloud instance of Visual Studio Code in my browser. And so here I have, it looks just like the screen I just showed you. And I can actually make this a little bigger so you can see it. Okay, there we go. And so I have a terminal down here. I can, write terminal stuff. I can do a theme if I want to. In this case, I just want to get started with Jupyter, right? If I'm going to see Jupyter notebook files. So I'm going to go here to my extensions and go to Jupyter. Can I spell correctly? There we go. Let's see. So here's the first one. And usually you can see the ones that have like millions of downloads. Those would be the ones you want to use. And these all have millions of downloads, but you want to just get Jupyter. And you'll just click install. And that's going to install to the instance. It's not going to install to your computer. It's all in the browser. There, it's done now. And then I can make a file, or I can take my file that I had, and I can just grab this one, for example. Let me see if I can get both up with my restricted screen space. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. So I can see if I can grab this file, the pre-course info. Okay, let's do it from GitHub. We can go here. All right. I can go lessons, and then I can go my lesson here, and I can download the file. Okay, open up my where it's located. Got it. Now I should be able to throw it in there. Okay, so I download it to my computer, and then I just dragged and dropped it into this code spaces. Now, some of the images won't show up because you have to have the graphics folder as well, which I have here. So if you want to download that folder, and put those into a graphics folder, then your links will work. But for the actual code blocks and everything else, you can still run those. So here it just pops up. Do you want to install the recommended Python? Sure, let's go ahead and install it. It'll run. So I'm using my own copy of Visual Studio Code, Delvina. But you can use this if you don't want to install anything on your computer. That's what I was saying. Like before, you don't have to have anything installed on your computer. I mean, GitHub is already free, and GitHub Codespaces is free and gives you enough time to run all the code in class if you want to. But there's other examples of other ways to run Python without having anything to install. So there we go. And now let me go to my Python environment that I just downloaded. And I'm up and running in just a few minutes. So let it run, and there it goes. In this case, time it took for Python to count to 5 million took 1.11 seconds in this little script. So yeah. So that's a way you can get around it without having to download anything. Just download the file, drag and drop it into your code spaces. Just install the Jupyter extension, and then you'll be up and running in just a few minutes. So hopefully that cleared up a little bit of confusion when it comes to Jupyter Notebooks. That's just one way to run them. If you are more comfortable installing programs in your computer, you can always go the route of, that's more like mine, where I have, everything installed. I have Python installed, several versions of Python installed based on what environment I'm in, and so on and so forth, which you don't have to do it all.
I think I brought it up earlier, but one of the things I ran into, and it looked like a few other people ran into it as well, is using REPL and running out of the 3 blank documents that you can create. I don't know how I did it, so I had to keep the one that I had open, just kept deleting stuff and copy pasting things over that.
You have to move them to your GitHub repository and delete them.
I just quite understand what you meant by that. I'm sorry.
So when I was just trying to play around with code and go through the challenges and things like that, do it over there. Somehow or another, we got to this point, a few of us, where we had created 3 documents, 3 blank. I assume they're documents, and then it wouldn't let us create another one. And I was trying to save them or something like that.
Can I interrupt for a second?
So, yeah, but we can barely understand you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Is that better?
No.
All right.
Wait, speak again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going through some audio stuff.
I can hear you.
What he's talking about is in REPL, there is a fake repository like a GitHub, and the free version allows 3. And so when they create 2 or more projects, they're unable to save. So the only way
you're talking about with this site?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure I have a login. I don't even know. I hardly ever use this, so
cautionary for anybody that's going to be using that environment. I'm just going to put Jupyter on my system and not worry about it. But
yeah, there's other ways around it. And the GitHub Codespaces is really awesome because it's free, and then you could and because if you already have a GitHub account, you just go to Codespaces and you're up and running. So I really don't use REPL.it very much. So and then let me see. Oh yeah, so Monica had a question about the lessons. They are associated each day. Of course, we have nine lesson days. So each one of these is 1 day. Sometimes we'll finish a little early. Sometimes we'll go to the very end, depending on how many questions I have. But I will be on until 9 o'clock. So if we finish at 8, I will be on, and we can have just nice office hours. You can ask questions. We can go over anything you didn't understand from the day before. We may have some time where we'll have some flexibility to kind of go over exercises together. So I urge everyone to stick around until 9 o'clock because I will be here, and then we'll end at 9 o'clock. But again, I'm just going to keep urging everyone, use that Slack channel. it is really helpful to just throw code in there and get feedback on it. And if you get accepted into Platoon, you're actually in a cohort, you'll be using it all the time anyway. So you can go ahead and get used to it. Cool. Let's get back into the lesson. So I think we stopped here at Booleans. So we're into numbers now. So I already kind of talked about numbers, right? I talked about integers, and I also talked about the floating point numbers or decimals. And that's really it. The presence of the decimal point means that number is a floating point number. Of course, you can always check with the type method. Again, type this, you see how it's like underlined and it's green, it has these parentheses, right? So that's how you can tell it's a method. Usually when there's these parentheses on either side of it and there's something that goes inside of it, that's an argument or a parameter to this type method. And again, we'll go more into detail on functions and like how the syntax works for these, but these are Python included methods. So they look a little different with their green text underlined. Just this IDE or integrated development environment highlights that a little differently so I can read it and kind of know what it is when I'm reading code. Normally, if you're just reading this in a text file, you wouldn't have all this fancy coloring or anything. You just have to know the Python code to see what it is. And of course here, type 34.5, I ran that in the type method and I get back a float. And then if you add a float with a integer, which you can do because they're both numbers, so they're both very similar in memory, how they're saved in the computer, and then the computer can do operations between those two memory addresses. You'll get back the most restrictive type, which is a float. So here, 34 plus 6.5, I get back 40.5. So that's a float. So here I explain that operations between floats and integers will always result in the most precise form. In that case, a decimal point, number with decimal points more precise than a whole number. So, and all we've been looking at so far is kind of the addition, right? So we've been looking at this addition operator. Well, we have all of them in Python. Some you're familiar with, some maybe something new to you, but we have our normal addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, exponent, which there's no little number at the top anymore. It's a 2 star. So it says 2 asterisk will delineate a exponent. We put the number after that. The number before the exponent operator will get it'll be to the power of whatever that is. So if you have a 4 star 3, you'll get 4 cubed back. But there are 2 here that probably you aren't familiar with, you haven't seen before, and that's the double slash here. That's floor division, and then you have the modulo, which looks like percent, but it's not. It is the modulus operator, and that returns only the remainder of division, while the floor division rounds down to the result, the nearest whole number of a division operation. So just like you learned in math class, Python still uses the PEMDAS order of operations. So you have the parentheses first, then exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Of course, multiplication, division, and addition and subtraction. If there are several of the same operation, it will operate from left to right, just like you would do with normal math. So if we take a look here at this math problem, and this is really the only math you'll be doing in this course. Contrary to popular belief, there's not much math involved in software engineering, which is awesome for people like me because I don't like math. But you have the parentheses. Yeah, thank goodness. You have the parentheses here first, and we know the order operations. This will be done first. And then we see, we have any exponents? Yes, we do. Here's an exponent. So we're going to be doing this one next, 8 to the power of 5. And then we're going to do division. So we'll take the result of this, which would be 71 divided by 4.3, and then adding the result of this to that. And this is the result we get back. And if you notice, it is a float. Again, we have a float in here. And of course, it's more precise anyway. Typically, all division operations will end up with a float anyway. There's not a lot of times you'll be writing stuff like this in Python. We're going to get into the concepts of variables. Typically, you don't want to hard code anything, and there's a little bit of that in the pre-course about hard coding versus programmatic, writing. You'll see that you're going to define everything as variables anyway. So all your hard coded values will be tucked away somewhere else when you're writing your code. But this is for illustration purposes. For this next cell, we have the floor division. So if you look back here, we have our double slash. No, Delvina, this is not hard coding PIMDOTs. I'm just explaining the order of operations, how math is done. If these were all variables, it would be done the same way. So if you had, my number and then my second number, my third number, fourth number, and fifth number, you put those in there, it would operate the same way. You'll get more of that as I go into like variables and then getting into the other data types. You'll see that here in just a bit. But here the floor division, floor division here, remember it takes it rounds down the result of the division to the to what's evenly to whatever this gets evenly divided by. So in this case, 23 with a floor division of 4, you can get back a 5 because 4 goes into 23 5 times. This remainder, this 3, is ignored. Conversely, we have 29 modulo 2. Remember, modulus returns only the remainder of division, and then the actual times it's divided into this number is ignored. So can anybody tell me what this result would be when I run this? Okay, I got 1. 1. Everyone says 1. And you're right, it's 1.
But I have a question about the last one.
This one?
The floor.
Oh, this one.
What if your floor, so you say it rounds down. What if you did 24 divided by 4? So it's going to round down every time, even if your remainder is greater than 0.5.
Well, the remainder right here now is 0 because 24 is evenly divided by 4.
It's a bad example, but like you get what I'm saying when your remainder is greater than.
So there's a math module that you can use that does floor and ceiling operations. So you can choose whether you round up or below 0.5.
Right now, we're not going to be introducing those. Well, I'll introduce those modules later on. But right now, just know that floor division will give you whatever the highest number in this, like basically how many times can this go into this number and ignore the remainder. It doesn't even give it to you. So in this case, 4 goes into 23 5 times all the way. There's still 3 left, but it ignores that.
Gotcha.
Same
But there
thing.
is a function later to capture the remainder and round up if you want.
Yeah. So here, if you look, 23 modulo 4 gives me back a 3 because it ignores how many times it goes into 23 and just gives me the remainder.
I think one thing I'd like to just, I don't know, interject into this whole conversation, which is something I take back from basically 18 years ago when I was going through the, AIT and kind of like initial skills training, which was like, all the instructors, when you had more questions, was like sort of this like brown door concept of like you have more questions, but you're not quite ready to like open that door yet. There's like a whole third party library system behind Python that I think is what really empowers it, but understanding these fundamentals is like almost imperative to understanding how to best utilize those like third party libraries. Over.
Well, I guess what are you trying to say, Jason?
Is that like so like you have to understand the very fundamental data structures of like how to just work with the built-ins of Python before you start really diving into like all the additional built the standard library and even branching out into some of the more advanced kind of third-party libraries like NumPy and things along those lines.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
basically understand the basics before you get into the more complex.
Right,
right.
right.
Yeah, this course is strictly designed on basics all the way. I will show some included modules that you have to actually activate, such like the random module or something like that.
Mhm.
That will give us some extra functionality in Python outside of what's in the. It's still included Python. It's just you can't just get it natively. You have to actually import it, and I'll show that in a bit. But right now, really, we're going over just the basic data types right now.
And I was just curious what happened if your remainder was greater than 0.5, because normally you would round up, right? So I was just curious if that would happen.
Oh yeah, so floor division, yeah, the floor division will always take the floor, which is you ignore whatever the remainder is. There's no rounding, it's just cutting it off. Yeah.
Makes sense. It's in the name, right?
Yep. So so yeah, if you look at this last one, this division operation, if you notice we have two integers, but then we end up with a float, right? So Python will give you the correct float representation of a result of a division operation without throwing an error. So that's just one thing to note about Python. If you notice, even if it is even, still gives you a float. So even though 5.0 is equal to 5, and I can prove that here. So 5.0, and I'm going to run a comparison operator equal to 5. That's true because they are equal. But once you add the 0.1 or anything else, then it's false. So 5.1 does not equal 5. So you can still compare between float and integer. Let me run that again. So there we go. Any questions on numbers?
No, but I think this is self-explanatory maybe, but going back to, I think it's syntax, you're putting a space in between all of these.
Mhm.
Is that critical? You can't just do 23/4. You have to do 23 space slash space slash space 4.
Yeah, you can. So you can totally, mash this together, but that is, so if you go back to the pre-course and look at like syntax rules in the PEP 8, there's a bunch of Python rules. PEP 8's a style guide. And when you're writing code, there's a lot of style guide. There's a lot of guidelines, if you will, of how to write Python that wouldn't, you would need to read it, kind of understand, or just use it. But in this case, you don't want to mash it together because it can become a bit unreadable, especially with a whole bunch of code. Typically, you just add spaces between two. The space doesn't really do anything. It just gives a visual spacing of the data.
So it's kind of like using proper grammar in any language.
Yeah, in fact, that's a lot of the Python rules are like that. In other languages like Java, you have public and private variables, if you will. And they actually, like, when you designate something as private, like, there are some things that it cannot do when, like, trying to reach that variable from another portion of code versus making it public. In Python, there's no such thing as public or private, but there's still ways to annotate something as public or private with like an underscore, which when people write Python, they'll understand when they see it, they'll understand the intent, but it really doesn't do anything. So it's like it's a visual thing. Same with like how long code is, right? So if you're writing code and you go beyond where you have to scroll, that's typically frowned upon. They want to keep a limit to code to where it's you don't have to scroll right or left in a view window like this. You would end up stopping at like 70, I think it's like 78 characters or something like that, and then you have to add a new line.
I think it might actually be 86 for the PEP 8.
Yeah, I can't remember the actual value. I don't have this stuff memorized, but yeah, it's a certain character length. If you have what's called a linter on your IDE, it'll flag your code as having a quote unquote error. When it doesn't, it will still run, but it will give you that error. in your preview. All right, let's move on to strings. So strings, formerly called string literals, these are immutable sequences of 0 or more characters. And so that keyword is immutable. And that's something that you'll want to just kind of make sure you understand. Immutability means that it cannot be changed in place. So you cannot change it once you establish it, you cannot change it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't reassign it. So totally rewrite it. You can do that, but you can't change it. And there's a big distinct difference. And we'll really get into that when we get into our ordered data structures, because we're going to get into lists, Python lists, which are very similar to strings, because strings really are sequences. And so they are collections of characters that are stored in memory. So each character has like a memory address, and they're all linked together to give you your variable. So they're enclosed with single, double, or triple quotes. So if I go over here and make a new code block, right? So I have my string, and they're enclosed with quotes. So if I have this, then this is my string. That would work to, this would be a string. And I can go ahead and say type my string. I run that, and then it's a string. Okay, so this is my string. If you take a look at this example here, I have a string, and this is the sequence of characters. You notice I have this indexing thing. I have a forward direction indexing and a backward direction indexing. And what that entails is the location of every single character. You can actually access those with square brackets. So if I would say my string and a square bracket, and I want to say 3, that's going to access a certain character. And one thing to keep in mind with Python, I have it right here in this sentence, Python uses zero-based indexing. Most programming languages use zero-based indexing. So it's one of those things, is kind of a fact that you'll need to know about programming languages. When they start counting, they always start counting at 0. So the zero-based indexing for forward direction is zero-based indexing. Backward direction starts at -1 and then counts backwards. So it's kind of like that's how you count normally, but it's backwards. And then with forward direction, it's 0 is always your first character or your first item in a list, for example, and then you count up from there. So in the case of my string at this index here, if I wanted to access the index 3, which one would that be?
String.
It's going to be S.
It's S, sorry.
So it goes by character, not by words within the string.
Yes.
Okay.
So this string is several characters long, and we can also use that built-in method to find how long it is by using my string. I see that's 17 characters long. Every single thing, every single item in the string is a character, even the space. So the space is a character. Each letter is a character. I could have numbers. I could have unique characters like the %sign or something else. All those would count as a character in the string. Yep. And so if I took a look at this here, then how would I access the R in string right here? What would I need to put as the index?
-14.
-14?
Or +13.
Or +13. Let's look at both.
-5.
-4, sorry.
Oh, -4. Okay.
Yeah, for the R of the string, right?
Yeah, so here.
Yeah, -4, sorry.
Okay, so here, let's try 13 first, and we have the R. So yep, 13 or -4. There we go. that's the same exact character. So string, my string at the index of 13 and my string at the index of -4 are the same exact thing. And so that's important when you're trying to find like the end of something, the end of a string. You can use the length. So you can use that length method to find the length. You can find the last index, or you can use negative indexing. So if you don't know how long your string is, use -1. You know that's the very end of the string. So that's a way to find those characters. And we have some exercises here. We have some exercises here that will help you stretch that concept a little bit. So here in this case, I have string for whatever reason. I need to fix that in my code. Here we have, I'm using the print statement and I'm just accessing each one, right? So I have my string, this is my basic string, and then to get the word this and a space 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can print those out line by line if I want to. Going back to immutability, right? So not only can you access something, right, with the square brackets. So in this case, we have my string, and I just want to see what it is by using -4, right? With Python lists, you can use that. You can use that syntax to actually assign an item in the list to something. So in this case, if I wanted to change that R to a Y, if I did this, I would get an error because I cannot. A string object is immutable, so it does not support item assignment. So even though a string is a sequence of characters, it's immutable. So I can't change something in place. Now, it doesn't mean I can't change the entire string. So I can say my string, I'm going to go ahead and print my string here. I can just call it because I think it'll print. My string equals my change string. And if I print it there, so print it here first. This is my string. I run it here, my change string. So I can reassign the entire string if I want to. That's not violating immutability because I'm just totally overriding it. But trying to just change one letter inside of a string without redefining it, Python won't let you do that. And so here's a whole section about string immutability. Again, I got a little ahead of myself in the lesson. I tend to do that a lot. So here's a whole section explaining this same exact thing, right? So I can't change something at the very. I can't change this period to an exclamation point. I would have to redefine it completely. So nothing stops us from redefining a string, which we can do. Any questions on that before we go into string operations and methods?
I kind of had one, but I'm not trying to get too into the weeds on this, so. just
I
real
can
quick.
barely hear you. I'm sorry. And feel free if you want to ask it in the chat, you can do that too. Cool. Yep, Margarito, you just rewrite a string. If you want to change it, you can totally redefine it. In fact, you'll do that sometimes with code when you're redefining something because you want to keep track of something. You'll just redefine it with like a loop or something, and you'll see all that when we get into loops. You'll see what I mean by redefining, using a loop to your advantage when doing that. All right, let's keep pressing then. So we have string operations and methods now. So what we're going to do is kind of talk about we're gonna expand a bit on that the syntax, the square bracket syntax, right? We can access a single character, or we can access a range of characters and return something by using these same brackets. The difference is with the string slicing is we're going to be putting a colon in between a start and a stop index, and an optional step index as well, to get a slice. So in this case here, we have the string and we have a start, stop, and step. The start and step are actually optional, because if omitted, the start will default to 0, and then the step will always default to 1. So the step will always do every character if you don't include it. In this case here, I'm actually doing that. I have my start index and my stop index, and I've omitted the step index. If you see a series of colons here in this example, I don't have that in there, but it would be the same thing as doing that. So I could do, let me go back. I don't know what happened though. I had to highlight it, that's why. It'd be the same thing as doing that. If I just omit it, then that's the same exact thing. So in case I have my string, right, as my change string here, if I run this now, with index 11 to index 18, I get the word changed because I just took a slice of my change string. So this is my string at the index of 11. And then when I slice, I'm going up to, but I'm not including the last one. So the space is actually the 18th index, and the slicing I'm going up to, but not including the last index. Which is important, because if I take a look at this here and I say, okay, so I know this is my 11th index, so 11, then 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and this is my 18th index. It's up to but not including. That's why when you run this, you just get back this as the string. You don't include that last space. That's another kind of one of those things you just need to memorize. Hey, when I'm using slicing, I'm going up to but not including. You'll want to sometimes you'll count up to it. So when you're looking at this, right, you see this is the 17th. If you wrote that, you would not include the last character. So here I have 17. I run that. I didn't include the D because it was up to but not including that index. Here in this example, we want to get all characters from index 0 up to but not including index 4. So if we go back to the example here, this is my change string, right? Again, the start and the step are optional. In this case, I have the colon. So there's something that should be here, but it doesn't have to be because that's a start. But the stop index is always needed. So I'm defaulting to 0, which is the first index, up to but not including index 4. If I run that, I get the word this. If you take a look back and know your string indexing, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to but not including. So that would give me the word this. Sure. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do up to but not including 10, and then also include a step. Let's do every other character. If you took a look at that, and let me go ahead and do this. All right, there we go. Now it's a little easier to see. So I started with 0, right? Because I omitted the first one, and I started at 0, so I got that one. And then because I have a step of 2, I'm skipping that one and getting this one. So I skipped one. I skipped the S and get the space. And then I skip the I and get the S here. I skip the space and get the M. And because I'm going to 10, if you took a look at this counting, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Up to, but not including, I didn't include that space, is stopped at the M right there because I didn't want to include that one. So that's the step.
What would be a realistic use for this?
Something I kind of wanted to point out is like it's you know, as I've had some experience programming, I generally don't use this working with string type data types a whole bunch. But let's say, for example, you're working with some latitude and longitude information, right? And because this doesn't just apply to strings, it can apply to a list of, let's say, a pair of latitude and longitudes. And maybe your initial set of latitude and longitude information is at a very high resolution, but you want to downsample that data. You can perform a step. You can slice a coordinate, right? Maybe your initial set is over the whole globe, and you want to slice between the western boundary of, California and the east coast of the United States, and you want to take a step at some reduced degree of resolution. At least that's how I've used this in the past.
Yeah, and you could use this, and you'll see it like if you want to get like the last word or something, you can use like the last index. I have some examples of some of this. In Mini Project 7 actually has a little preview of like a text paragraph and you use string slicing to get things, and you'll see it. If you take a look at it on your own, you can take a look at it, but we'll run it later when we get there. But using this slicing to find URLs, there's other methods. We're going to look at some of those methods to find certain things, and then you can start building from that. You'll find like the index of a certain character, and then you can use slicing to grab stuff afterward. Like let's say, for example, you want to find the @ symbol, which will tell you there's an email, right? So you want to find all the @ symbols, and then you want to start, grabbing everything on either side of that @ symbol. That like, you're looking for anything with yahoo.com. So then how long yahoo.com is, and you can use that string slicing length to extract data from a string. It can be used for data cleaning operations. A lot of times that's what it really is used for. When there's a mess of strings coming in. Yeah, all this will be part of scripting. So Patrick, you hit it on the head. Like this is all like tiny components of scripting. You're going to be writing some Python scripts, and you can use this in repeatable processes to find things in big, inputs. And I have some examples further on down in the lesson of that. But let me keep on this. I have about 10 minutes till next break, and then we're gonna go through these different string methods. If you don't specify a stop index, so I know someone asked something about that. Can you show, let's see, you should probably include an example of slicing when there's no index, or just show the other things. I do have some examples in here. So in this example, we want to print my string, and this time we want to start at a certain character and go to the end. So you just omit the stop, and it will go to the end. In this case, we have the string slice of, -6. If you count back, then this is -1, -2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's -6. And we want to go all the way to the end. If you want to get to the end, you have to omit the last character. Now, I could do this. I could say -1, but the problem when I do that, I'm going to omit the last character because it's up to, but not including. So I'm going from -6 all the way to -1, and when I actually put -1, I'm not including the -1. It's up to, but not including. So to get the last character, you just omit your stop, and it will get your entire string to the end. Does that make sense? It's a little weird to think about. Hopefully all these examples will help you understand the string slicing. It's really important to think about when to omit the stop and the start, but it's pretty easy to wrap your mind around once you have the hang of it. So that's what these lessons are going to be. A lot of new stuff to kind of think about how to when using Python and just how computers operate in general. There's some little weird rules, but like counting from 0 and up to but not including these rules and these things. Hopefully I'm capturing all this for you so you can use this for the challenges coming up.
One thing that I think helped me early on, like just wrapping my head around slice notation, was understanding how it relates to the actual slice object, is that it's like you could replace that -6 : with just slice parentheses -6, and it's do you know what I'm talking about, Aaron?
So
The
you're
actual,
saying
like the actual slice object, where you can like instantiate the class outside of the notation. So if you just like write slice and then parentheses -6, it's like effectively the same thing.
oh, you're saying the actual word slice.
Right, because
Yeah.
right. It's in like when you understand that like everything in Python is just like an object, and you do this slice notation, all you're really doing is creating like an object, and there's like a way to like explicitly create that object. I don't know. It just like for me, it helped, I guess, like understanding of the slice notation.
Yep, I didn't learn that way. So, but yeah, I mean, and again, there's all sorts of ways to also learn, what's going on behind the scenes with Python. And I urge you to take a look at the documentation I have in here. So yeah, that is a way to think about it too. Everything is an object in Python. But we will not be introducing the concept of objects here. So again, this is more like scripting and going through that. The actual learning about objects in Python, and there's a lot more complicated stuff in Python, but that's not really the intent of this course here. So we can also use string slicing to reverse a string by using -1 as a step. So if we run this here, let me see here. We have, I didn't change this either. Let's go -1 here. I think that's what we do. Nope. Hold on. -1. There we go. Oh my gosh. There we go. So in this case here, what I'm doing is I'm printing the string, and then when you omit the start and stop and just include the step, when you use a -1, you're just going to basically reverse the string. And so you'll find some challenges like that where they'll ask you to quickly reverse something. You can use the -1 step to do that quickly. You could also write different methods to do it, but this is the quickest way to do so. So this is kind of like a little cheat code, if you will, to reverse a string quickly by using string slicing. Here's a little exercise. So assigning a new string to a variable. Okay, in this case, we have the Navy Creed. And that's not really Navy Creed, but it's one the Navy uses a lot when they want to say, go Navy, beat Army. You can also assign, so if you look here, again, I'm using the slicing to take the word Navy out of there. But I could also assign a new variable on that. If I want to grab a variable from there, I can then say my new variable equals Navy Creed. It's the slice of that, and I can actually get the value. So my new variable equals maybe creed. Okay. I can run that, and then I can print. I can make a new block here. And run that. And now I have my new variable is a slice of the Navy creed, and that is the word Navy by taking the slice. So at the index of 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. This is the 7th index. This comma is the 7th index, but you don't include that. So go Navy, beat Army. So it's NAVY. That is my new variable. Any questions on those string methods?
More of a comment. I find it a little confusing without actually using it yet. I think once I get in there and start digging around with it and practicing it, will be a little easier. But right now, I can't see the application, like how it would apply to writing code until I actually do it.
Yep, and that's also why I would, using that Slack channel, you're not going to have questions sometimes in lecture. I did it. When I was in Platoon, I was like, I don't even know what to ask, right? I don't know how this applies yet until I actually use it. So I encourage everyone to use the Slack channel to ask questions. I'll be able to answer some. We have Rich, the TA, can answer some, and then if you have as a student, I know we have some folks who have used code here before. If you want to answer questions, by all means, please do, because that's we're going to learn together, and you'll see the application here of this pretty soon. We have some exercises down at the bottom, and then of course the mini projects we're going to do at the end. You're going to use a lot of these methods in the mini project, I promise you, and you'll see the application of these steps. Okay, here's some other examples of some string methods kind of here into some print statements. Starting off, I'm assigning Platoon as the variable boot camp, and then I'm printing the 5th index, which is going to be the P. So 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the P is 5. You're not going to need to count all the time. I'm just doing that for illustrating purposes. There's other ways to find indexes of certain things that you're looking for, and we'll get into that, into the string methods. Here we have another one, the length, and you've seen me use this a couple times, and that's just to find the length of your string. So in this case, the length of boot camp is 12. So we can use that to our advantage, right? We know how long something is. Then we can use some quick math in our head to find like the last character or the last word. If we're looking for something, you can use that to your advantage. And then here, I'm also accessing the P with -7. So I'm counting backwards, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's also the capital P. And then I'm taking a slice of the word code. So 0 to 4. Up to, but not including the 4th index is the word code. We're going to go ahead and take a break for 10 minutes, and then we'll get into the actual included string methods. And you'll find that these are going to be very useful when you're trying to manipulate text and do some things. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break, come back at 8:10, and then we'll resume the lesson. Welcome back from break. We left off with string slicing, and we went over some of those, how to slice a string certain ways, and using the start, stop, and step. You can, I showed some examples of skipping characters when you're grabbing a slice, taking a slice and defining it to a new variable. And so we have these methods to really manipulate these basic data type that can be, they can be represented, a lot of things can be represented by a string. And right now, that concept really is probably lost on a lot of you. But I promise by the end, you'll have some understanding of why knowing these methods is important when you're tackling bigger problems with programming. So bear with me. We're going to go into some string methods. And if you took a look at the pre-course, we talk about functions. Methods in Python are basically, functions that are included with the language that do something. So there's code behind the scenes that when you call these methods, they're going to do something to whatever you're calling them on. And so strings have their own methods in Python. They use return a modified copy, but not actually change the original string. So in this case, we have the first one is upper. So when we have our string and we put a dot upper and then we have our open and close parentheses, that again signifies this is a method. It converts all the characters in a string to uppercase. So here I have my text hello world, and then I want to make a new variable and I want to assign it to text.upper. When I do that, I now have a new variable called upper text, but the original text is unchanged by this. And then I can see that now upper text is all uppercase of hello world. If I were to go ahead and print, let me go ahead and move this over. And then add a new code block. Print text. So if I run that over there, I have hello world. But if I run the original variable, it was not changed by this method. So I was able to assign it the output of this method, but the original text was unchanged. So in this case, why would you want to convert all of your text to uppercase? Well, if you want to ensure consistent formatting for something, or if you want to perform comparisons that are case insensitive. So just like whenever you put your email in, right, you type in your email on your phone, the auto formatting is going to capitalize the first letter every time. But doesn't mean your email is wrong, even though a capital A and a lowercase a are very different when you're comparing them to a computer. A capital A is not a lower, just like when you look at passwords, right? A capital A is different from a lowercase a. And that has to do with the ASCII tables. There are actual values tied to letters in the alphabet and every other character as well on the keyboard. There's a certain value that you can see from those characters. And this methodology, this method actually takes those characters and does some arithmetic behind the scenes and gives you the correct ASCII character of that lowercase letter to the uppercase letter. In this case here, we have our user email, right? We have mattsmith@gmail.com. And then we have this, login name, right? And we want to enter our email. Right, so this is like a very basic little script. If I run this, right, if you notice, it's kind of running. You see how it's running? It's not really doing anything. That's because I have this input method here. And that's actually telling me I want to enter my email. And that's up here. So if you look at the top of the screen, it says enter your email. And so I'm going to go ahead and enter my email. And whatever I enter here is going to be assigned to this variable called login name. And then later on in the script, if you look, I'm actually doing a comparison operation to see if my email that I put in is the same as the user email. And if it is, I'm going to give it access granted. If not, it's not going to do anything. Okay. And it's going to cast both those to uppercase. Let's go ahead and just put in Matt Smith @gmail.com and press enter. And then I get back access granted. And if you notice, I didn't put a capital M. I didn't put a capital S. But what I put in was cast to uppercase. So both of them were cast to uppercase. This one was cast to uppercase. So when it came to actually comparing them in the script, they were both uppercase. and they were equal at that point. So they did, this equality comparison operator said, yep, those two are the same. So these values are true. And I get back access granted. If I ran this again, and I put james.smith@gmail.com, and I hit enter, I did not get access granted because that's not the same thing. I used the word James versus Matt. That's different. So that's a little script to kind of show how you can do like a little quick comparison. Robert, I didn't tell it to do that. So if I were to run this somewhere else, if I had this as a Python file, ran it in my terminal, it would show up in the terminal and I would type it there. With Visual Studio Code and Jupyter Notebooks and specifically, and even different flavors of Jupyter, if I ran this in the browser, for example, it may show up below the cell. It's just with Visual Studio Code and the input method, it pops up at the top. Yeah, so just the input method when it says enter your email, like it just pops up there for me to put in data from the script. But it's just a behavior of the IDE. Conversely, we have the string.lower. That converts all the characters in string to lowercase. So in this case, we have hello world. Just like we saw uppercase, now it's all lowercase. And it's the same thing. You can use either or for comparison, comparing things case insensitive, if you will. And then capitalize will capitalize the first character of a string and makes all others lowercase. So only the first one. So if I ran this here, you notice then the P is capitalized, but everything else is lowercase. You can use this for capitalizing names or titles. You can use it to format strings to be a little more grammatically correct. You can do some, use to beautify some strings. There's all sorts of reasons why you would use capitalize, or even the title case. So in this example, it's very similar to capitalizing just the first character, but it's every word in the string gets capitalized. So in this case, we have, lowercase Python programming. If you use text.title, so this title again is the method, that title method, you get Python programming, and both the first characters of these strings are capitalized. Megan has a good question. So does .title work in JavaScript too? Probably not. Could. I don't know if, I'm not familiar with all the JavaScript built-in methods. There are built-in methods, but they may have like two title case or something. And it's all in the JavaScript language. There's different names for a lot of these methods that you have for Python that, translating it to JavaScript, it will just be a different name, but they'll work the same. And there are some things that don't exist at all. Like some of these things don't exist in JavaScript like they do in Python, and vice versa. Specifically, finding the last character in a string with JavaScript, there is no -1. You have to use the length of the string, and you have to use that to calculate like the end. Here's another one, the strip method. So this is useful for like cleaning input or cleaning data that may have some inconsistent spacing. Let's say, for example, you have some character recognition software. You run through and you scan a typed page, and it adds extra spaces just because that's the way the OCR technology grabbed the text. You would then use strip to kind of get back to the original form. So in this case, I have a text, and even though I have a bunch of spaces in here, then this is some text and some other ones. If I run that, you see the extra spaces here, and then I run text.strip, and I defined it to a new one called strip text. Then you see now strip text has gotten all the spaces on either side of it stripped off. Tom, that could be, yeah, that could be very well the case. I just know that, JavaScript is the language of the web, and the web is, definitely cross-platform as well. So, but yeah, I mean, all these languages will have built-in methods, a lot of them being very similar, but yeah, you will see some that do not apply to JavaScript, and vice versa. Some in JavaScript that are not in Python. But there's not too many. It's most of them have a lot of these methods that may have a different name, but they'll have the same functionality. Any questions so far on the ones we've gone over so far? This is a pretty important one. So the strip one is very useful when you're like initially have like some data you want to kind of clean up. You can run this one first to kind of give you know that you're going to have characters that aren't spaces right in the beginning and end of your string. So it's a really,
So did you just
go ahead.
Did you just automatically know that that one was just strip text, or it could have been written a different way?
Are you
Like
talking about
text
this?
equals text dot strip. Yeah.
I mean, you can define anything you want. Yeah, I'm just making a variable at that point. So if I,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I'm just making a variable, right? So now chicken equals the strip text, like, so that's another thing. You'll see in the pre-course too. So again, I foot stomp, like review that pre-course information. It's super important, but it kind of talks about assigning variables, right? So when we want to assign a variable, we want to make it kind of descriptive to what it's doing. In this case, stripped text is a pretty descriptive descriptive variable name because it kind of tells you what it is. You don't want to have like x equals whatever, or y equals whatever, because if you have like 15 variables, you have, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T. Like, wait, what is J again? What is M? I can't remember. Like, I have to go back. Like, if you have a descriptive text for your variable name, it makes it a lot easier to read your code and kind of follow along some of the logic. Because you're gonna find, as you get into this coding business, you'll have several files with hundreds of lines of code, and you have to follow the sequence of something going from one function to another file to a function there, and then to another function, and you have to kind of follow the format, mentally as you're trying to break it down. So there's a certain way to write code that helps you with that. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks Jason for sending those. That's great. These JavaScript, string methods. He's sharing those in the chat. Again, we're not focusing on JavaScript here, so feel free to take a look at those. Those are awesome, especially folks who have been using the intro to coding and kind of been diving into JavaScript a bit. We're changing gears for Python here. But feel free to study along with JavaScript. If you have the bandwidth for that, you want to study Python and kind of understand what's going on in JavaScript too. I had several students in my last cohorts that did that. They were able to study both and kind of get themselves ahead of the game when it came to prep work, getting into Platoon. So it is possible. So, but for the course here, we will focus on only Python. Cool. Let's move on to starts with. So we have our starts with method here. And with this one, we check to see if it starts with a specific prefix. So your prefix can be as big or as little as you want. And this one's really, really good if you have some text and you want to see if it starts with like, for example, like let's say you have a bunch of, like you have a big list of URLs, or you have and it'd be more applicable for the ends with, but you want to look for something with a certain you want to look for something with a certain address, let's say a name or something in the starts with. You can find the location or find that it actually has that information that you need. In this case, we have hello world. This is a standard example we see with a lot of coding lessons. I'm sure y'all have seen that. I'm making a new variable here, and I'm defining it as my method starts with of my text, and I put the word hello, right? And the result is true. Now, what if I change that to hello like that? What would I get?
You should get a Boolean.
You get a
Oh,
false.
false. Yeah.
Does not start with hello with lowercase. So that's a good case showing how the case matters here. Now I could use the I could cast it or use the method to make it lowercase. So I could do like that, maybe. Now, if you remember from before, we did it this way. Let me go ahead and actually run it again so we can see it, like that. So we run it true. But if I do it like this, now I get false. Because this right here now says, okay, the hello is H. If I change this now to lowercase hello, I run that, I get true. Because I'm casting this. It can be super confusing. You wouldn't want to do this anyway. But what I'm saying is you can use that, not casting, you can use this method to change the lowercase right there inside of the parentheses. But you'll typically want to have your pure form there. So, but if you were looking for hello upper and lower, like if you were looking for any case of hello world, you would put that in there, and then you would cast your original text as well, if you're case insensitive. As far as ends with, you're looking for if a string ends with a specified suffix. This one could be an example, like, I talk about filtering or categorizing things. Let's say you have a collection of 1 million URLs, or even email addresses, and you only want to find the .edu email addresses. Well, then you could use that with a loop to find all of your email addresses that end with .edu, because let's say you run a site that gives a discount to folks with a like the students. So you want to find any email address that ends with .edu. You could use this in your Python script in the back end to kind of check for that discount. Oh yes, Rich answered, is there a method to find all? There is, and that's regex, which is regular expressions. That's a special way to kind of find certain patterns in text. It is beyond the scope of this course, but regex is very powerful pattern matching. And we can throw the resource of regex into the chat or into Slack even. It's good for finding patterns in text. I have to look up regex every time I use it because I don't use it often enough to kind of know. I always have to kind of relearn regex every time I have to use it. Yeah, so Rich just shared regex 101, which is one of the best resources for it. Okay, moving on to find. So we have string.find, and this is searches for a substring within a string, returns the index of the first occurrence. So for example, I have my text, which is Python is a powerful language, Python is fun. And my index is going to be text.find, and I have the word is. The result shouldn't be 0, but yeah, it will not be 0. Let's go ahead and change that. So in this case here, we have our text, and we're looking for the word is, right? The substring is in here, and we do find it. We find it right here, and that's at index 7. But there is another one in here, over here. So just remember, when you're using find, it's only going to find the first occurrence. So if you have several occurrences of the same substring, it's not going to find all of them. It's just going to find one. But you can use either regex or other things to find substrings throughout an entire group of text if you wanted. But that's and you can also use a way to get, once you find one value, you can divide your text into substrings using a loop to find the subsequent reoccurrences of that substring But in this case, we're just using it, in its native form. It's going to find just the first occurrence. Now, if I change that to the word not, right, because we don't have the word not in here. If I run that, I get a -1, which means I didn't find that substring at all in the main string. Utilizing this, for teaching purposes, this is a nice string. In reality, strings will typically be a lot bigger. Just like in my, the lesson 7 here, I have this one string. This is kind of what, you want to use Python to your advantage when you can't read everything. You can read all that if you want to, but you want to use code to kind of do that for you. And that's exactly what it's doing. So in this case, we're just trying to keep it short examples so you can see everything. But in this case, we did not find the word not, and the result was a -1. -1 just means it wasn't found. That's just the return value. I haven't actually even looked up why it returns -1. That's a good question for me to Google later, actually, just so I know.
If I had to guess, if it said 0, I would assume it's at the beginning.
Yeah.
But -1 makes you think it's at the end.
I know. So it's kind of weird, right? But it's also not really indexing, and so yeah, it's just kind of that's a good question. I don't know why it actually returns -1, but
Yeah, that I would expect it to return none if there was. That's weird.
yeah, it's a good question. It's a good way to think about it. So
I also wonder if it has to do with like memory, is where a -1 might be a smaller memory allocation than a none or a falsy.
Yeah. Okay, so looks like here we have, what if you put find and put a period? Okay, let's do that. Just put a period right there. Get 29. And 29 is right there. Cool. Let's move on to count. So we have our count method. This counts the number of non-overlapping occurrences of a substring, and it's good for text analysis. So in this case, we have our text, and that's Python is a popular language, and Python is versatile. Here we are defining a variable called text lower, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want to convert all this to lowercase, and then look for the word Python. And now I'm doing some things that you haven't seen me do in the previous examples, right? I started like assigning variables. If you look here, I have my text, right? And I say Python. Okay, so that's now what text equals. And then I'm making a new one called text lower, which we kind of did before when we did the capitalize or to lowercase, right? So we did that before, but now I have I'm saying target equals Python. And then I'm saying, okay, well, my count, now I'm making a new variable. So I've made 4 variables in the first 4 lines here, and it's text lower dot count and then target. So target is actually equal to Python. And if I run this, I get a 2. And that's because I defined everything. So this is kind of what you would see normally in code, where you're seeing variables being evaluated versus actual raw text. Because you want things to be assigned to variables, so things are easy to read whenever you get down to the code. So you could almost say this is almost like the script setup, and then this is actually where it gets operated. And then you see there's no more like raw data in here. It's all been defined as a variable. And then I'm just returning my count here and just displaying it. This with Jupyter Notebooks, if you just announce a variable, like you just write a variable here, it'll put it in the output without a print statement, but it's only the last thing. So if I had other variables before that, it would not display them. It only displays the last variable. So if I put like target here, and I ran this, I wouldn't see target because it's not the last one. If I did want to see it, I would have to run the print method to see it. In that case, I can do that. And you see, there it is. Yep. So the 2 means the Python was found twice in the string. Yep. That's exactly what it means. Now, if I didn't do the lowercase, right? If I did not do this, and I'm going to do something some of you have seen before, you saw it in the pre-course, but if I hit command and then the question mark on my keyboard, because I'm using a Mac, I'm commenting out this will not run in the Python interpreter anymore. And so if I'll have to change this variable because I basically just made my text lower not exist. Now if I run it, if you notice, my target is lowercase Python and it was found 0 times in the text. Non-overlapping means that, like, let's say, for example, I mean, I really can't think of a good example right off the top of my head, but let's say like Python was also found like here. So like, let's say this word was just the way it was constructed, you could find Python here and also here, just the construction of the letters. That's what it means by non-overlapping. All right. Moving on, we have our replace method. This replaces all occurrences of a specified substring with another string. This one's good for cleaning up text, transforming it to a more readable format. In this case, we have a date string of 3/14/2024, and then we want to change it to have dashes instead of slashes. So I run the replace method, and then I have 2 parameters I put into this method. This is kind of something introduced here, but really these parameters are arguments that go into this method. In this case, the first argument is the slash. The second argument is what we want to change that slash into. So if I ran this, I print the original date string, and then I also printed the formatted date. It converted all those forward slashes to dashes. I know Jason mentioned coordinates and things like that. When I was working with NGA, we work with maps and coordinates all the time, and I did a lot of working with a lot of coordinates and data coming in and converting things to KML files, and sometimes you'd have to kind of clean up the data coming in to be able to use them. So you would use these replace methods to do that. Or just like Jason was saying, with taking coordinates and taking off some the precision because you don't need it. You can do that with string methods if your data format is a string. Any questions on replace? Okay, these next 2, you have split and join. These next 2 are kind of like opposites of each other. So the .split will split a string into a list of substrings based on a specified delimiter, and the join will do the exact opposite. So in this case here, if we want to split this date into a list of substrings, and then we'll go into list in lesson 3 with ordered data structures, but a list is really a collection and it's annotated with the square brackets. So if I were to run this on my string, I'm running my split method on slashes, and then it would just separate the data on that delimiter. It won't include it. So it basically like gets rid of the delimiter, but you have your, you've split your data at that point when you have a list and you have 3 separate objects now. You have date, you have your month, your day, and your year in this example. It's really useful for processing data. You may have to split strings sometimes. In fact, in lesson 7, you'll have to do that whenever you're trying to find sentences. You have to split your data so you can then count things. So splitting your strings on spaces is a good way to do like word counts. That would be an example. You just split on a space. So that's a good use for that. Conversely, you have your join method. So that joins a list. So like this 3, 14, 20, 24 back into a single string using the current string as a separator. Now, this one looks a little weird, especially when you're doing it this way, because you put whatever you want to join the dates on in front of it, and then you have your actual the list that you're trying to join as the parameter that gets put into the join method. So in this case, I have my split date, which is right here, and then this now equals split date is this list, and I want to join it on empty character. So if I ran that, now I don't have the slashes anymore. I just have it all mashed together into one string. But if I put this slash back in, or I put a dash in, and I ran that, I would get my dashes back in my separate list items. I would get it back in between. So that's what I mean by these things are basically opposite of each other. You can split a data into a list, and you can merge it with join, you can put it back together.
Could you scroll up a hair to replace? So when you're replacing that, you're replacing a character. If you were to add a space before and after the dash, would that include a space when you're spacing the numbers out?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's a little preview of what's going on. Just another example. We have our grocery list of bread, milk, and cookies. We want to print that grocery list. That's what this first print statement is showing that is a list. That's denoted by these square brackets. And then I want to join the grocery list. So I use a comma and a space to join them. So I have bread, comma, space, milk, comma, space, cookies right here. And then I want to split them again. I split my grocery list. Let me see here on a space. So I want to, when you don't put anything there, it defaults to white space. But if I want to split it on a comma, I would do comma like that, I believe. Yeah, the same thing. So split on a comma.
Did I understand that correctly? Leaving it blank equals space, but if you want to put a character in, you have to put the character in quotes.
Yeah, because you're splitting it on a substring. Remember, you're splitting a string. So I'm splitting this. This is one single string. And then I have to split it on a substring. That's what this comma represents. Okay, I believe this was, yeah, it's just another example showing this is my string. And then if I use just split without any parameter, it's going to split on white space. So it splits in all the white space by default. So those are all methods that return a separate data structure. These other methods are more conditionals, which will evaluate a string before doing anything. So they can be used to evaluate a string for certain characteristics. So you can kind of use it as like a test before you do something. It could be a way to like check something before you do one of these other operations, which may cause an error. So in this case, the first one is alpha, and that one checks if all the characters in the string are alphabetic. So they would have to all be letters. If there's one single number in there, even though it's a string, string representation of a number would still be identified by this. In this case, we have, this is my string, all mashed together, run that, it's true. But if I have a space in there, and run that, it's false because space is not alphanumeric. So it has to be all letters. So this can be used for like checking for, you've seen it all the time, like with password like requirements, those restrictions that they have, like I have so many alphanumeric characters or whatever. You can use these methods behind the scenes to kind of write that code. It's really not done that way anymore, but you could. So I recommend not using your own methods to check for passwords, of course. A little disclaimer. But so that's what this is for. It has to be all alphanumeric characters. It'll return a true, so return a Boolean, which you can use to do stuff in your code if you had this like this one check. Same with numeric. So if you have a string that's use the isNumeric method, it'll check to see if they're all numeric or digits, and it's good for validating input. So if I run that, true. But if I have the word one in there, I run that, it becomes false because these letters are not numeric in that string. And I believe spaces also cause it to go false. Yeah, so spaces also cause it to go false because spaces are not numeric. This combines alphanumeric, so is alnum is alphanumeric letters and digits. So if I run here on ABC 1, 2, 3, also lowercase works as well. So that's what it's going to be checking for. It's just giving you a yes or no. Just like with changing strings to lowercase or uppercase, you can check to see if they're all lowercase by using isLower. In this case, ABC 1, 2, 3 with capital ABC is false. If I do it this way, it's true. It ignores numbers in this case. So even if you have numbers in there, you're just checking letters with this method. So you'll get a true if you have numbers and all lowercase letters. And I believe it ignores spaces too. Yeah, so it ignores spaces as well. Conversely, is upper does the same thing. This will be true. We have some spaces in there, but we have only uppercase letters in the string. If we have a single lowercase letter, it returns false. Any questions so far on these?
I have a question.
Sure.
When is it that you have to create the variable? I mean, usually, so my background is with Java. So if you're using the method my underscore string dot is upper, that's what I'm used to. But then you're creating the variable by saying this equals my dot is upper. So when do you know that you have to create the variable?
Are you saying like, why am I creating a variable right here?
So if what you had been going over earlier, you would say string equals my underscore string dot is upper. And so you create a variable in that form. But now you're just using the method, which is what I'm familiar with. So why are you creating the variable, and when not to create the variable and just using the method straight up?
So I could have a string right here, right? So I could do, let me just copy this bad boy right here. Like that, right? Let me comment this out. I could run that and that will work. That will evaluate to true. but all I'm doing is just assigning a variables just so it's cleaner for presentation. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I believe so. I just
Yeah.
would like for it to be, this is when, and as opposed to, you understand what I'm saying?
You're coming in kind of broken, so it's kind of hard to understand. I guess I'm still not understanding what you're asking, like why I'm defining a variable.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Are you looking for consistency in the code?
Yes.
To use the same format every time. Is that what you're saying?
No, if you want to create a variable, you're using the same format. But when do you know it'd be better to go ahead and create a variable rather than just use the function, the method? Plain and simple.
Okay, so I think what you're asking, like, yeah, why wouldn't you just run this on this without creating a variable? Well, if I were using this as a function that, evaluated several strings coming in, right? I can have this as part of a function. I would have to have that defined anyway when it comes into my function as a parameter. So I could like define a function with my parameter as my incoming data. My incoming data will then be assigned to whatever that parameter name is, and then I would just run this inside the function. I'm just not done to introduce functions yet, so I haven't really done that. But yeah, this is just kind of a setup to show how you would use this. And this is how you would typically see it in like a traditional code base. This would never just be a raw string and then using it as upper. Like you would never see that in code. You would always see it turned into a variable somehow.
Well, I'm also more used to seeing as something is called a character or a string, and you're going a step further and creating rather than using variables with just mathematics and things of that nature, you're turning it into a string into a variable. And so but then you go to back, you revert back to just using straight method. And so again, it becomes a question of when to make sure that you're taking the string and turning it into a variable, and as opposed to just using the straight method. It just seems like an added step to me. You're saying to clean it up, and I understand. It just seems like it's rather than cleaning it up, it seems like it's making it more complex than it needs to be, just based on my prior knowledge experience.
I can see that. I just really just for illustration purposes, I'm doing this. Again, reading the fact that you can assign variables using this methodology. Again, because repetition is key, right? So having this data, I have the raw data here, but I'm assigning to a variable just so I have consistency when presenting it, and just so everyone understands that I'm redefining my string every time I do this, right? So my string is, at this cell, that's what my string equals. But once I run it here, I'm redefining it to this one now and running this method on this. That's really all I'm illustrating with that. And it's mainly for the purposes of this course. But you'll typically see in live code something like this. You won't see raw strings being evaluated this way. That's just not the way it's done. But yeah, we can talk later about it. I am running almost to 9 o'clock, and I
Go
have
ahead.
just a
Go ahead. Thank you.
little bit left to do. So I will go over a little bit today. The next following days, we will have extra time at the end. But I want to move on to interpolated strings. So these are, fairly recent addition to Python, where you can kind of use the letter F in front of a string. They're called F strings. And they allow you to put expressions inside of strings, and it will automatically like cast it to a string and give you a result. In this case, I have my name, Aaron, and you'll see this again. So if you have questions about this now, we can ask them in the chat, in the Slack channel. We will revisit this big time later on in the lessons. But I have my name, and I'm defining as my first name. and then I'm making a greeting. In this case, I'm saying hello, and then I'm using these curly brackets, and I'm injecting my name into there. And so when I run this, I get back my name. It's kind of thrown into the greeting. And you could do this other ways with strings without using the interpolation. It's just a very clean syntax, and you'll see the purposes for it later on when we get into the other lessons. Moving into escape sequences. They allow you to include special characters and strings, and they also allow you to put certain things, like if I wanted to put a double quote inside of my string, which also has double quotes on the outside, it won't mess me up. So that's also why we have single quote and double quote strings. So you can, use a double quote to put in contractions into a string without messing it up. But in this case, these escape sequences kind of do special things. If you notice how they turn purple in this IDE, so you can see them. But here I have a tab character, so that's what that is. And this will just throw a tab into my string. And then this new line character will throw this string into a new line in my output. And so when I print multi-line, that's exactly what I get. So those escape sequences are, they're used in all languages. In this case, we just use it to show some new lines and tabs, and also to allow you to put in characters into a string that would accidentally close it, for example. Or if you wanted to put like a string, you put a quote inside of a string, you could use these escape characters to not mess up your Python programming. And you'll see some more of that too in later lessons. The last data type that we have is the none type, and that has only one value, which is not the same thing as 0 or an empty string. A good way to think about it is none is an empty cell in a spreadsheet. So you have a spreadsheet with a grid, and it's filled with none, right? A lot of times you'll see some variables initialized as none before they're used. So you'll do that sometimes with code, but it's an actual type. So it's the none type. If you run type on none, you see how it turns out purple. That is the none type. These purple words are reserved words in Python. I do have information in the pre-course to go over that. But it is a special type of data in Python. And see, if I have these comparison operators here to show that none does not equal empty bracket, none does not equal empty string, and none does not equal 0. It is a way to show nothing. So you'll find it returned from various functions as you get into programming. I just wanted to illustrate that that's what really the none type is just a value of nothing. So that's the lesson. So I have an exercise here, and I believe the solution is actually still in the code that you probably pulled down. But you can do this exercise on your own, to do some arithmetic with the bill. You can put your code in, but we can go over this on Wednesday. We can talk about this exercise in the chat as well. But yeah, this is a quick little exercise to go over a restaurant bill to get your expected output. And then we have some, I believe these go to REPL it. These are additional exercises to use some of the string methods that we had. For example, this one's called reverse. So this is, reverse and reverse order. And that will show, that's just some exercises to do on your own. Again, these are just to practice. The goal of QuickPass is to get the part 2 done. So that's your main goal. But these are ways to get yourself to that point by trying some different exercises and getting used to using these string methods, mostly string methods, but we also have some arithmetic in here, getting used to a lot of the stuff you learned today, because it is a lot. And so going back to your pre-course and just looking at resources is really good to help you get through these exercises. Any questions for me before we close the lesson today? I've enjoyed the discussion in the chat. This is the most lively discussion in the chat, I believe, I've had of all the QuickPass sessions. So I welcome the questions. You're keeping the TA busy by answering all of them that you can. But I'll try and answer them as I see them. If you don't feel like speaking up, you can just ask questions in the chat. But all right, so I'll go ahead and stop the recording. And